Good afternoon. This is Ben Yarbrough with Calyptix Security, and I'm excited today to bring to you our named inventor, Aaron Bieber of Gatekeeper, among other things. He's a contributor to the OpenBSD project, as well as a potential named inventor. So he's very active in the software development world, been there for a number of years, and we're real excited to have him on our team. Aaron, say hello.
Hello.
I think Aaron's done some training and some other sessions with you guys. We've got a number of folks participating today, and so we're going to try to do a little bit of an overview for folks that don't have firsthand experience with the new features that we've added to AccessEnforcer. But we're going to also make sure we leave plenty of time to talk about the new enhancements, which we think are quite significant, and do a real live demo. God willing, and we'll talk about the prospects for access to version 5.02. Do a little open mic, and again, this is ad-libbing, so we'll see how that goes. And we also talk about roadmap. We're going to share sort of what we did, what we just built and are releasing, as well as sort of the framework we're trying to map our future roadmap and considerations. Lastly, we've got a lot of gear. And looking to get more gear. We're very proud of the work we've done on Gatekeeper. We want to get people excited about that, promoting it, and we'll talk a little about that then. A couple of housekeeping matters. We will be and are recording this session and make it available on our YouTube channel as well as in our portal. We're not going to go into great detail on the early part of Gatekeeper. There's a tremendous amount of knowledge base in our portal, as well as videos on the YouTube channel on the introduction, setup, and use of the tools. We're going to try to hit Q&A as we go. A limited open mic, and due to the number of folks that participating, we're going to do it that approach. And then, want to make sure we're looking for you guys. We need your help. We need your help to document use cases, to validate use cases. We need your help to spread the word, and we need your help to help outline future use case and opportunities, because we believe the revolutionary nature of the solution needs some out-of-the-box thinking, and we need problems to solve. And so with that, we'll have some survey questions when you exit the session that you can give us sort of open feedback, constructive. All we ask is ideas, feedback, positive or challenges that you might have had. All we ask is candor and constructiveness in your approach. And then we have a few polls, a couple related to the roadmap, a couple that our sales and marketing folks have asked us to put in. That'll be the limited sales and marketing. So we do hope you can help us there. We have several members of our marketing team participating, so they'll be listening for your ideas, your use cases, things you need and why you need them. So we're looking forward to hearing that. So with that, this is a slide on all the information that's out there on Gatekeeper, as well as 5.0. You can schedule training, email support for a specific feature, particularly Gatekeeper and geofence. We encourage you to give us a review on Google or Facebook, like us on these platforms, share the word, and also, again, there's changelog, release notes, videos, a lot of detailed content. I would be remiss if I did not make sure I mentioned geofence. Geofence is inbound shielding of your network infrastructure. With 5 clicks, you can block the world. So that means the probes, the reconnaissance, the unauthorized access attempts that we're seeing can be dramatically reduced with geofence. Why is that important? Because it takes your targets, your customers as targets, off the list of foreign adversaries that are looking for future targets, whether it's a web server, whether it's a iDRAC, or whether it's a, you name it. If it's exposed on the internet, the world is trying to identify it, catalog it, and determine the version, record it in their database for future access. So if you can stay off the list, it's a good start. We think small businesses can use geofence to do that. You can also illustrate very easily to your clients what's being poked, what ports, 3389, 80, 443, or whatever's may be opened. You can make it clear to your customer that you do need to implement these other tools. You do need to implement good hygiene. You do need to maintain your exposed systems. Additionally, it allows you to reduce the noise so that you can look at the inbound IDS, IPS traffic alerts that matter. And so, those coming from inside the US or inside jurisdictions where your clients need access from. So let's settle back to Gatekeeper. Why did we build it? When you look at the data, there's serious threats to exposed systems on the internet. Whether or not you're looking at the probes, the number of vulnerabilities, the actual advisories from the NSA, the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, our international allies that are also promoting in Australia and the UK, the problems they see. You look at the attack data, and then you look at the breach data and the consequences. Ransomware, number one target, continues to be RDP exposed ports. And so the cost of that is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially. Even if it's $50,000 for a small law firm, that's huge. And you and I, we know that. We are in the S of the SMB. And when people talk about 500 seat small business, while those guys are great customers to get, that's not the real small businesses that most of us work with day in and day out. Additionally, our partners, they know this is a problem. The exposed ports that it creates, the brute force attacks, the scans, the probes, the lockouts, that's all a pain. It's added cost and complexity. You can try to keep stuff up to date. You can try to patch it with, but it's hard. And then you add on top of that the fact of outright credential thefts, then the cost and complexity of VPNs, and the pushback that we see from customers, small business owners that say, hey, just let me use RDP. It's okay, right? Well, we know that there are 5 million systems out there with RDP exposed on Shodan that you can get a subscription there and pull the list down at your leisure, which people do. So this is really needed. So what does it do? Again, it grants remote users access to specific internal resources after they've been authenticated with a multi-factor process. It creates short-lived firewall rules, transient firewall rules that are only used once from the source where the authorized user is coming from. So it means there's no client software required, which supports multiple systems, and we've generated auditor-friendly logs to track that access. What does that mean? The benefit to you is it's bringing zero trust network access to the small business. If you look at what Gartner's touting at the enterprise level for the benefits of zero trust, they're quite significant. And they're leading to replacing our VPNs outright because the added complexity and vulnerabilities there. So we really encourage you to think of Gatekeeper not as a gimmick, but truly as a new way to look at security. Instead of giving everybody unfettered access to systems, you're only giving authorized users access to those systems. Think about that. That's a fundamental shift in the way we expose systems and resources to our customers. It introduces least privilege access control. It makes it easy, and it significantly reduces the threat that your customers face. So our goal is to spread this solution as far and as wide and as deep as we can. Why? Because when you look at the intelligence that we see, that Lockheed Martin in its cyber kill chain says, if you're going to do security, you need to be smart because we only have limited resources. And I can attest, at Calyptix, we have limited resources. So what can we do that can yield the biggest benefit to you guys is to provide this access control solution. It stops reconnaissance, delivery of attacks, exploits at installation, multiple points on the attack chain can it stop. And you only have to stop it once and you're good. So think about that. We need to shift the advantage of this to you guys and protecting your clients. It takes a change in thinking unfettered access to least privilege access. So there is a fundamental shift that you have to help your customers make in implementing these type of tools. Everybody doesn't need access to QuickBooks. Everybody doesn't need access to the domain controller. Everybody doesn't need access to these systems. When you take that approach, the benefit is immeasurable. It also maps to the MITRE attack model. It's an enterprise solution or approach of looking at attacks and how to stop them. So it's really important that you understand this tool is grounded in great principles. I'm going to pause for a second. There are a number of flags on the user base, and I just want to make sure that if anybody has questions or needs attention, we can get to that. Let's see, just scrolling through. We have a great attendance today, so I'm going to try to see if there's some. Great. So one question is, this is a very good question from Des Dugan. How does this Gatekeeper solution improve over what we have in terms of a VPN? So if you think about a VPN, the Calyptix VPN, think about it. I had a conversation some years ago with a partner like a hose pipe. When you connect the hose pipe to the network, everything flows, right? So generally, it allows a user to connect their system fully to the network. So that can be good, but it can also be bad, right? Because now that system is fully exposed to the network both ways. And so what Gatekeeper does, it's a much more focused access control tool. So not only does it allow you to get a specific user, a specific access, and for instance, with the RDP client, you're only allowing that RDP connection to a remote workstation. So now you're not exposing the RDP port at all to the public. You're allowing a user to essentially, in this case, hit a browser session, the gatekeeper.example.com, log in, username and password, Active Directory username if you choose, and then it requires a two-factor authentication token to proceed. So that's number one. Or actually number two, no exposed ports for this system that's behind Gatekeeper. Number two, it allows for the two-factor access. And then once somebody gets there, it only lets them go to the approved system that they have been authorized to hit, in this case, a remote desktop session to a workstation. So it's very specific, it's very granular. And if you overlay that with geofence, then you're only allowing a user coming from a source IP in an approved country to hit Gatekeeper, which is a maintained interface, and then authenticate. So you combine those two features and you have a significantly reduced security exposure for your clients. So this is sort of the simple initial intended view on the screen now in terms of going through Gatekeeper and hitting a workstation like with RDP or SSH. A more advanced implementation, that's coming up. So in going through the Gatekeeper implementation, there are a couple of key concepts. First, the portal. The portal consists of the organization, the directory service, the group of users, and the rules. That's all set up as sort of one organization. The group of users are then populated out of some directory service tool, such as Active Directory, and you create a rule. If you think of that as a user that's authorized to hit a destination or target machine, and that's overlaid with a multi-factor authentication solution. Those are the key concepts in order to allow someone to access. In terms of the basics, you'll see here again what you need to set it up that we talked about. You do need a domain name, and you do need to establish a server encryption protocol that's being used, and you need a certificate that you can change. And we've made that easy for you with a SSL certificate that you can get free from Let's Encrypt, and we do automatic maintenance for you to renew that certificate as it goes. I know I'm going fast here because this is not intended to be a total setup of Gatekeeper. It's a real quick introduction for those of you that don't know it, but there are also a lot more materials on the portal in terms of a specific setup, 20-minute video, as well as an introductory video on Gatekeeper. So again, I already went over the basic setup earlier, and then a more advanced setup is where you can actually use Gatekeeper to authenticate to one AccessEnforcer and then relay and control that access through an access control rule to another site, such as a branch office that operates an access enforcer or even a different firewall. So if you have a customer that needs to get to a workstation at that branch office, you can still use a single instance of Access Enforcer to facilitate effective and safe use of RDP at multiple locations for the same organization. This is actually how I access my workstation remotely, in that I access a Gatekeeper instance in our data center, authenticate, and then that allows me to proceed to our office where I go through the firewall there, which does happen to be an Access Enforcer, but that's got an access control rule allowing only traffic from our data center into my remote my workstation. Aaron, any thoughts, comments? I know that was pretty quick, 18-minute session here. Introduction to Gatekeeper, a lot of coverage, but I really want to leave a lot of time for 502 and the demo. Any thoughts?
Sure, yeah. I can't remember if you touched on it or not, but another reason you might want to use Gatekeeper over a VPN is that there's no installation of a VPN client or similar thing.
That's huge.
So yeah, so you can take, say someone is remote, they don't have their laptop or other devices or something. You can go in and create a rule or use an existing rule and add them to it and grant them access to internal resources for emergency kind of situations or something like that.
Yeah, I think one of the cases is, hey, you're at your parents' or your grandparents' house and you need to get to a remote machine, and whether that's if it's a Windows machine, it's going to have an RDP client. If it's a Mac, it's got an RDP client, and so, or if it's your tablet or even your phone, although it's a little hard using it to RDP with a phone with a small screen, but it is doable. I've done it. Not recommended, but it's doable. That's a great point. Another notion, and I don't know, this is one of these unexpected questions for you, Aaron. So I know with RDP that's a single session. So they talk about session cookies or some of the security around that. When you're creating and authenticating and authorizing a single session, it's really difficult to hijack a session. Whereas if you've got an ongoing connection, it's a little different. Is a VPN a single session, or is it multiple sessions following the authentication?
I'm not entirely sure what you mean by session, but
I'm talking live connection, I guess, is when I think.
Okay, as far as TCP is concerned, both RDP and the VPN would be persistent connections that are
okay.
stateful. Yeah.
Cool. So let me look again at the question log, and so let's see. Got a couple of feature requests. One other comment from one of our developers, Bryce. Thank you. Is that the he's not hot on the mic, but he's sharing. The Gatekeeper allows for the rules to have timeouts, which means you could put a little bit more granular policy access control around the access. So an hour or 8 hours, so it doesn't, or even shorter, so it doesn't get left open unintended. So that's a great one. So now we're going to jump into 502. So this represents a new version, a new release that we're in the final stages of QA testing, and we're eating our own dog food here and working on it. And in that, we have taken the initial feedback that we've gotten with 5.0 and the initial rollout of Gatekeeper to expand this functionality, as I mentioned, as far and as wide and as deep as we can. So if you'll note here in the table, we have the concept of the portals that I mentioned. Both versions have one, and 100 user rule combinations. And the original implementation covered RDP and SSH traffic, which is what 2 to 3 years ago we set out to solve that problem. And we needed to get there fast, so we relied on Active Directory as the user source of users. With that 502, however, we listened to our partners, and they said the number one thing they needed was to be able to use Gatekeeper where they don't have Active Directory, or where they might not have Active Directory in the future. So we have added a local directory. So that's no problem now with 502. We think that's really important for small organizations. Additionally, it allows you to accommodate users that would maybe not be in an Active Directory, such as a vendor, an HVAC person, or something like that. And that gets us to the next huge opportunity with Gatekeeper, and that's the introduction of HTTPS traffic. This is a very complicated protocol. It's deployed in different ways, but the intent here is to give access to systems that can be accessible via an HTTPS interface, which there are a lot of. And so we think this begins to open up access control to the Internet of Things. And Aaron's going to show you that. Right, Aaron?
Yes, indeed.
It also, we added VNC and SFTP type of traffic. VNC offers, maybe you could explain these two rules a little better than me, because I'm not a huge Linux or Unix guy, but why would you need these two rules? What are some use cases there?
Well, VNC would be usable on Windows or Linux or any flavor of Unix. Offers the same kind of capabilities as RDP. It gives you a graphical interface to log into and poke around and do stuff. And a lot of people, myself, in the past, I've used VNC on Active Directory servers for when terminal services was, we didn't want to deal with licensing or similar things. SFTP is useful for transferring files. It's FTP over SSH basically, and so that can be pretty handy. I believe there's even an SFTP server for Windows, so that can enable file transfers on Windows and Unix-like operating systems. So.
That brings up an idea, which is always dangerous in a live session. But I'm guessing if you had a really large file, Aaron, you can't email it, and you need to deliver it securely. Maybe it's CAD drawings, or I don't know, but some massive file.
Yeah.
Is that a viable answer there?
It is a viable route. You could also do it over RDP.
Okay.
That allows file transfers. So there's a lot of options on that front.
Okay, that's helpful. They love my unexpected questions. So what excites me the most is when you start to look at the protocol functionality of Gatekeeper, and you look at the explosion of Internet of Things and the combustible reality of the security of Internet of Things. The world is going to be crying for a solution. The world is crying for a solution. They just don't know it. And it's got to be easy, affordable, and secure. And we believe this is where Gatekeeper really comes in. We've done research on what our customer base, has in their networks, and we can see, the what's happening there, and talking to folks. These are all real use case scenarios that might be doable with Gatekeeper, depending on the endpoints. So you look at all these different things that are behind your firewall, and the ability now to authorize on-demand two-factor access, it's pretty powerful. We are looking for you guys to help us define those use cases and spread the word that this is a really effective solution. So that's not the only thing we've done in 502, Aaron. We've done some more things around the passwords and the certificates, DHCP reservations. I don't know, I know that with RDP, when you're using Gatekeeper, you're involved in 3 systems, and so you have to manage, from your remote device into Gatekeeper, and then you got to get through the edge device, which may or may not be Gatekeeper, and you've got to get on the destination or target machine. And one of the things we ran into was some password synchronization, right?
So yeah, when users were forced to change their password due to expiration or similar situations, our one-time connection would basically fail because they would connect. Active Directory would say, okay, you got to change your password, and then their connection wouldn't be able to reestablish itself, because after that it was toast because the transient VPN or transient firewall rules. So we've added some fixes for that. So now when a user needs to change their password, they'll see the prompt, they'll be able to punch in their new password, and everything should continue as expected. So
excellent. And then in terms of the SSL certificate, I know the early ad was strictly for Gatekeeper to be able to add the automatically updatable SSL certificate for the Gatekeeper access. But what does this new functionality do?
Well, we kind of just cleared up the interface a little bit. It was a little bit confusing as to what was happening. So we made it very clear what certificate was being used for the admin UI and which ones were available for other uses.
So this takes away that certificate warning when I'm trying to go to my firewall, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the DHCP reservation, that has to do with, I mean, typically you might want to make a DHCP reservation for the destination or target machine. And so this makes, I guess, that you can just, in the DHCP table, you could just single click and reserve that MAC address and put a note on it or something like that.
Yep. Yeah, we've dramatically improved the workflow on the DHCP page.
Yeah.
It's much easier to use, and you can sort the table now. So if you've got hundreds of entries, it's easy to find what you're looking for. So
cool.
It's a good improvement.
That's ease of use. There's a lot of ease of use here. The IPsec algorithms, I've been doing this for a few years now, and I still don't understand it. But I remember Dr. Zing shared that you don't know crypto until you've been doing it 20 years at least. You're still a novice, but these things keep changing. The protocols change, the levels of encryption change, and people think crypto is crypto. It stays the same, right? It's just numbers, but it doesn't. It's constantly evolving. They come in and out of favor. And we've seen that over the years. Crypto is not a static solution. So what this is really helping to expand, accommodate, extend those enhanced protections and try to steer people away from the not recommended things that may not have enough horsepower, right?
Yep.
Is that accurate? Yep. I don't want to overstate or understate, but that's my understanding of what we've done here.
Yeah, we try to help with it's all a balance, right? Usability, security, and all this jazz. So like we try to make it as easy as we can while still presenting all of the options that one might want while doing IPsec.
And some of these may come into play a year from now with changes with PCI or the CMMC requirements or other recommendations. They may not be at play today, but they'll come to play as we go forward. We also made some multi-WAN improvements and fixes there. That always is a delicate dynamic when you're handling two internet connections. And then we made some improvements for PCI compliance as well as the web GUI and other internals that we do. And those are part of the ongoing services of the firewall maintenance and firmware updates that we do. So if you really want to get into the weeds on the changes, there's a detailed change log. That's also helpful for your auditors if they need to see things that have been updated. So you can see a version number, the date that was released or first put out. It's not necessarily the date your box was updated. So you kind of have to coordinate that and map those. But you'll see the changes, including any regulatory-driven updates. So Aaron, this is where it gets fun. I'm going to transfer the controls over to you. but I thought we'd share
Cool.
a little bit about your demo. And why don't you tell us what you're going to show us and why you chose what you chose?
All right. Well, I'm going to be basically showing Gatekeeper from the user perspective. We can go in afterwards and look at the admin side of it, but I'm going to be showing accessing Ubiquiti's Unifi Controller on an internal network. This is kind of a, you might have seen them in the news recently. There was a breach of their cloud stuff, which is, quite frankly, is terrifying because you have all of your networks basically talking up to this cloud, and anyone that gains access to it potentially has access to everything on your network. So this with this demo Gatekeeper access, you're keeping everything internal and maintaining some usability and remote management. So it's quite handy in my book. Yeah, the less you're given to external parties, the better. I'm also going to be showing an IP camera that we've got going on, and then using some monitoring software to check to see what's going on the network. So,
and that monitoring software, just to be clear, so you're going to hit two destination or target machines. One's the IP camera, and the other one's a machine that's doing both the controller and the monitoring dashboard. Is that right?
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, this is the big test. We're going to change presenter and pass that to Aaron.
All right. Sweet. So let me get Ben's face out of the way.
Oh yeah, I may just close that down.
Cool. So here we are at our Gatekeeper interface. This is what the end users would see when they're signing in. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in with my credentials. Get my two-factor code here. So here there's two rules that we have set up. One is for the IP camera, and the other one is for Network Manager, which gives me access to the Unifi Controller and Grafana. So let me establish my connection. So now the firewall rule has been created. It's going to be active for an hour. This little countdown will remain even through browser refreshes or sign-outs or anything. And all you do is you click it, and it takes you to the internal stuff. So here is my Unifi Controller. We can take a look at any of the devices, just like you normally can. We can look at our clients, see what's going on here. We've got some alerts. So pretty much the fully functioning management interface. Quite handy. So, and then we can poke in and check out on Grafana, see what's happening on the network. We can look at all of our hosts. So this machine is doing some work. We can look at the other machine, which is running our monitoring software, and it's nice and not no load on that one. We can also look at our we've got some Ubiquiti stuff being monitored as well. We can see what's going on the network with that. And then if we come in and we disconnect, that will blow these guys away, and they will no longer function. So as you can see, they've ceased to work because we've blown away that one-time rule. So we can come down here, say we want to check out our data center or whatever it is.
You got something really important you're keeping an eye on, right?
Yeah, we got business gopher over here.
Wait, show me. Okay, so I'm gonna pick somebody. Give me a number, Aaron. I want them to know this is live, right? So a number between 1 and 5. This is in Aaron's chair. Somebody shoot me a chat with a number. Pick a number random, 1 to 5. Let's see. So Somebody's got to give me a number. Maybe I'm not reading it.
I just
4. I heard 4. Somebody said 4. All right.
Right.
4.
All
Show
right.
me a 4, Aaron.
4.
There we go. All right. So this is live. So I find this awesome, though. The ability to log in remotely and hit a device inside a network with two-factor authentication. I don't have to put any software on that endpoint. And I know who hit it, when they hit it, and from where they hit it, and when they terminated their session, right? I mean, it's like, and they can only hit that machine. I mean, that's like, I don't know. It just, to me, it's very exciting. So I guess I'm easily excited. But it changes the way we think about controlling access to systems.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then if we, just like with the other ones, if we disconnect that, then we come back over here and we will have no more business gopher. So let me just show you real quick what that looks like on the back end as far as the setup. So under Gatekeeper, we've got our local portal.
So let me, show that. So this is the big picture concept portal, right? This is like organization. Yeah. So those are those big picture topics that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah. So then we can look at the rules. So here are the two rules that we see when we're logged in as our user: network manager and IP camera. Those are defined here. You can see that we've only given myself access to them, but you could have any number of users.
And in this case, the users, I know you're going to show it, but this is the big change, right?
Yeah. So this is where the HTTPS rules are defined. And then if we go over to the users tab, this is where we have a new user type that is local, and that's what creates these local to the AccessEnforcer users that can be used in Gatekeeper. So uses the same interface that you're used to for adding users for other things, stuff like that. So yeah. Real quick, let me show you the DHCP clients page. So by default, it sorts from it shows the most recent lease that was given out and when it was given, and you can change the order of how things are sorted. You can sort by IP address. I think you can do MAC address too. So quite
one
helpful.
Thing that's really cool, I used to take this table, I'd drop it into a CSV and try to sort by that IP address, and for some reason it didn't sort right because it's I guess text and not numeric. So you guys figure out how to sort it so it should lay out right?
Yep. Yeah, and then one click basically to convert it into a lease. I mean to a reservation. So quite handy on that front. But previously you had to go to another page, and it was complicated.
Right. So this again is some ease of use type things we're also trying to add as we go.
Yep. Yeah. So I think that's it for my demo, unless you think of anything.
Yeah. So I don't know if we've got questions on the demo as we've done it. I'll take a look here. Let me see if I could snag control again. And so then, yeah, so we're going to post the this video up. There's some end user videos currently on the Windows remote user and an Android user, just on the original RDP and SSH type implementations. And so take a look at that. We're going to talk a little bit about how we make Gatekeeper available. And, you know, it is an add-on to our current software on AccessEnforcer. And so that means we're able to push that when it's released to existing units in the field. So currently we are released 501, which has a gatekeeper and geofence on it. And then that's on new sales upgrades, RMA replacements, and we're also doing the infield upgrades. We do recommend the 2 gig minimum memory there. We've got folks that have boxes in the field for 7-8 years, and it's time to do some planned replacement there, guys. We do like to get the goodie out of a hardware investment, but it doesn't last forever. It will fail. And so if you can talk to your customers and plan that replacement, you're going to be in a lot better shape. And so we can do that. In terms of 502, we are taking folks that have interest in getting that on their sites. Let us know. Shoot an email to support. We'll put you in the queue if you can give us a serial number, ideally, or the customer site. And we roll those out not all at once. Based on our years of experience, we do a staggered rollout so we don't put a super high number of your sites with the new version straight away. But we're going to try to prioritize as we start rolling it out. And so let us know. So with that, I don't know if anybody has any firsthand experience with Gatekeeper that maybe would be interested in sharing their experience or use cases or questions. But we do have a number of questions in the queue that we'll get to. But if somebody wants to do the hand raise, I'll see if I can figure that out. And I know we have a number of folks that haven't used Gatekeeper yet on the session as well.
One thing I wanted to mention real quick on the 2 gigs of RAM, it's I was thinking about it a while the other day because I was coming from OpenBSD as a background. It was very confusing to me why there were issues running on a machine with 2 gigs of RAM because I've got machines that I do regular testing on that have 512 megs and things seem to work fine there. And then it hit me. It's things like Snort and the signature-based virus detection stuff.
Yeah, for
those databases.
Yeah.
Yeah, they never shrink. They only grow in size. So
right. So user experience with the units can vary based on the actual implementation and configuration. That's a really good point. And so if you have questions about that, let us know. So Ted, I noticed, raised his hand, and I would love to open Ted's mic here. I'm going to unmute Ted. And if you've got, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know. Any thoughts on Gatekeeper, Ted?
All right, I got 2 for you. So first of all, thank you for the presentation. It was really helpful. I think this is a great product, and I see a lot of possibility for it. One thing you didn't talk about, and I don't know if you've determined yet, is cost, or if that's something you want to even talk about on this call. But we would be interested in finding out what your pricing ideas is for it. And then the second question that I have is more of about looking forward. So this is a great utility to have when you have a Calyptix, when you have an infrastructure that your Calyptix is on the edge of. But the problem is that most of our clients are actually getting rid of their infrastructure. So from starting last March, when everything shut down because of COVID, everybody started working remotely. And rather than having computers in the office that they're remoting into, they've gone 100% cloud and are no longer even having an office to remote into.
Right.
So we're talking about single endpoints that are essentially out in the wild that are accessing data, whether it be Microsoft 365 or whatever, wherever their files are located at. Is there anything upcoming from you guys to protect those? Because if I don't have an edge point in my network, then it's a tough sell to put in a Calyptix because I can't put one in every user's house.
Right, that's a great question, and we'll love to dig in more deeply in nitty-gritty detail because I think it is important for us to really understand the specifics of a use case and implementation. But let me
Sure.
tackle those two questions in twofold. I'm going to unmute you back, Ted. So, and Aaron, jump in. So, pricing. This is intended to be a technical session, not get into too much sales and marketing. But we do have it priced as an add-on. It's the first add-on in over 10 years we've ever done with Calyptix. And we do have it as either a monthly or annual. On a monthly, it's $10 a month for 100 user rules. We think that's extremely reasonable. And so on an annual basis, it's $100 a year. And so that's, we don't limit you by the type of rule, RDP, HTTP, or, we don't limit. It's just sort of an aggregate count, and then we limit one portal. So I know there's solutions out there that are $10 a user per month, all the way down to others. So we think for an add-on to AccessEnforcer, that's a very reasonable approach. That was our introductory pricing, and at this point, we haven't had any reason to think about changing it. So you can rely on that. In terms of the cloud, I think we can address some of that in the roadmap conversations. And I do think, again, depending on what your users are accessing, I would go back to the demo that Aaron just did and help. Cloud is not an answer. Cloud is just another point of exposure. And so when you think about Ubiquiti's cloud controller platform, that you are now outsourcing your security, for that entire platform, for everything in the network, that scares me. It scares Aaron. I know that scares a lot of people. So we do think there is an implementation roadmap that gets us there, but there are a lot of nitty-gritty details into what that looks like. So I know that's somewhat vague, but that's, I don't have a better answer than that at this time. And it'll go to our roadmap conversation. So let me, hopefully that's helpful. I don't know if anybody else has some experience or any feedback. Let's see if I can.
Well, you wouldn't be running Ubiquiti stuff in a cloud.
In your own cloud, yeah.
It'd be, the networking side would be done with, on the AWS or whatever cloud provider you're using. But conceptually, the same things would apply with Gatekeeper. You would be able to grant access and stuff like that.
So the idea is that the same issues arise in a cloud environment, that you need authenticated access to those resources, right? And so
yeah.
And so it's a question of what's the specific use case and implementation, and how do we get a gatekeeper type experience for the user and a control experience for the admin in that scenario, right? And I think it's doable. I mean, I really think it's doable. It's one of the reasons I'm really excited about this is because of the flexibility. We built the solution to target the problem of RDP. And as we built it with the ability to think about other scenarios. So I think this is a good time to segue to that. And we could talk a little bit about roadmap. And I think in doing so, we've got a couple of polls that, before I obtain anybody, I'd like to ask these two questions. So the first is there any single feature that would be most important for you out of this list? And there may be other items, but in this list, as it relates to authentication around leveraging O365, authentication with other LDAP directory services, or with other third-party notification type methods like Duo, Okta, Authy from Twilio. The interesting piece is, then depending on how the vendor, these other vendors have things set up, we have different capabilities. Another is using a SAML OpenID integration. What is that, Bryce, to the layman like myself? I mean, Aaron, what does the integration with SAML OpenID do for somebody?
Well, it's a big topic, but basically it would give a single sign-on kind of functionality and potentially more types of authentication that could be done.
Great. And then the SMS delivery, that's the text of the two-factor code. We had a number of folks ask for that one. So if we could we'll give you another 30, 45 seconds. This feedback is really important and helpful to us. So if you have interest in steering the ship, you got about a few more seconds. So and then we'll close this one. All right, a couple more folks out there still hadn't voted. I want to be flexible, but I got to move on. One more. Who's going to be it? Who's the last voter? Oh, we go. Thanks. All right, so now we got, I'm going to ask the same question. So that was a hard one because you had to choose. This one, I'm going to ask the same question, but pick them all now. So, as a organization with limited resources, we do have to choose what we can do and say no to a lot of things. So, for those of you that said, oh man, I'd like it all, this is your chance. So you don't have to think very hard. You just look at the same question and choose all that apply. So ideally we can get about the same number of folks and not make this too painful. And we're getting close. Got a few more to go. All right, this was a lot faster because it was the same question, so that's great. So we'll give you 5 more seconds and close it, and then we'll share. So this is great. So when we look at the single most important thing, here are the results. Let's see. So the number 1 request is around Office 365, and that's awesome to get that guidance. Number 2 is the text, and the third is other two-factor, and lastly other LDAP. So this is quite helpful. I've got 2 comments, Aaron. You have any initial thoughts of this feedback?
Not really, no. It's kind of what I expected.
Yeah. So we knew going in that we have a really heavy Microsoft-oriented community, and that's awesome. One thing I will say is that the O365 integration, whether the 2FA or the user, Active Directory is not the same on premise, on Azure, or when you just use O365. And then, whether or not we can do the two-factor integration is going to depend on some of those things too. So we're definitely into that, and we'll do as much as we can and focus our energy there. The other is on the SMS text delivery. Now, I know people really want that, but every time I talk to my good friend who's in a security lawyer for a very large company, says, don't do it. Texting two-factor is bad. It gets hacked all the time. So there's a trade-off. We realize that, but it's sometimes better than nothing. So it's something that we're interested in doing. But I think it's one of those, you guys have to understand, eyes wide open, it's not best case. So, and then the third party, other like Duo, we're eager to do that as well. So that's helpful. So let's look at the other one. Any new features? So this one, it really tracks the same. What's interesting though is when we made people choose, it kind of laid out the same way. So that's helpful, but there are a lot more people interested in the third-party two-factor. So that's helpful to see the value in that is good. So thank you guys for your feedback there. Any thoughts about what you expect?
About what I expected.
There you go. Aaron's not easily surprised. So additionally, there are going to be ways you can shoot an email to beta@calyptix.com. That goes to a group of technical folks. They can see the input. You can go way beyond me on the technical. So that would be helpful. So I think as we look at the roadmap, it's important to go back to the elements that we can work on and what we had in 501 and what we have in 502. It's coming. And I turned the phone off, but I didn't turn the darn watch off. Golly. So this shows the addition to the local directory. And it shows the addition of the HTTP, SFTP, VNC, and the ease of use. And that's really the early testers, the beta testers. That's where the feedback was, and that's what we worked on. So as we look at future considerations, we've got the user directories around the O365 and LDAP, considering expanding the portals, considering other licensing plans, the cloud deployment implementation. That becomes a very different, scenario, whether it's cloud service or a VM. I think that speaks to some of Ted's question is, could we get Gatekeeper in these cloud worlds? And that's something we're interested in doing. So if you have use cases that have details around it, that's what we're interested in finding to extend the roadmap, is not conjecture, but reality. And we're willing to invest in reality, because reality gives us what we just shared with a partner yesterday or 2 days ago, is a 31-page proof of concept implementation with IP addresses, domain certificates, and all kind of really specific details. Developers can make stuff in reality. They can't make stuff in conjecture. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yep.
So this is kind of the roadmap world. And when I say use case, the user directories, that's all about identity access management, which is a big enterprise acronym, or IAM buzzword. And you can manage internal users and external users, and that's scalable to thousands of users. You can manage one portal or multiple portals, and that takes Gatekeeper and turns it into a multi-tenant solution. And then you can map, and this comes from our support team, it's really important, is the rule type or traffic type is what maps the technical capabilities to a use case. So like an RDP scenario to a workstation or terminal server. But in the enterprise world, they want to go to a bastion host or a jump station. The same with SSH, right? The Internet of Things, HTTPS, that's getting to a camera or to a management console. It could also be getting to an application or a web portal, the private web portal, a WordPress implementation that you need to put two-factor in front of. That's where you map the use cases to how it gets done. And then the deployment, is it WAN to LAN on premise, or LAN to LAN on premise, or a hosted service from a WAN to a LAN through another WAN, or is it a VM implementation? Does that help, do you think, Aaron, in terms of sort of trying to create real world scenarios?
Yeah, I think so. You need to know what you're dealing with. That's the first step. So
yep. So we're just trying to put items out here for consideration, and let you understand the framework that we're thinking about as we evolve the solution.
I would be curious to know what. Apologize, I forgot. Was it Tom?
Ted
that had the question. Tim that had the question. I'd be curious to know what you envisioned Gatekeeper would be granting access to in a cloud kind of environment. Would it be, virtual workstations or something?
Ted, I've unmuted you.
Yeah, so I guess, and I'm going to apologize right off the bat, because it wasn't specifically about Gatekeeper. This was, in general, what are you guys doing? And I should have saved it for the roadmap portion of it, so I apologize. Gatekeeper, I understand. The Gatekeeper, the purpose of is to remote into devices and things like that securely.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm specifically talking about is when you don't have devices to remote into, how are you guys going to, is there anything in the roadmap that you guys are planning to secure those devices? So when I'm talking about having individual endpoints out in the field, those individual endpoints out in the field are not going to a central location in the traditional sense of the word. I'm not talking about VMs in the cloud. I'm not talking about servers in the cloud. I'm talking about having file structures that are in SharePoint or that are in OneDrive or Teams or something like that. I can't defend those devices using Calyptix right now, and so we're looking for a way to do that. And I'd be more than happy. I don't want to sidetrack what you guys are doing here. I would love to sit down with you guys for a little while and give you some use case scenarios, and then just kind of poke your brain on what you think about it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ted. I appreciate your sort of acknowledgement of sort of the time frame and where we are. And I do want to sort of, we believe there is a role for Calyptix in helping you secure access to those assets. It may not be what you're thinking. It may be done differently, but the same basic premise exists. You need to let the right person get to the right asset at the right time from the right place from the right device, right? And so it's sort of digging into those details and fleshing it out. So this is a new area. It's wide open. So we got another participant that's requested. Mike, would love to hear your thoughts, questions. I'm going to unmute you there, Mike. Hopefully that worked.
All right. Yeah. Most of the clients that we have like local Synology NAS units. There's other NAS units. And typically what we do on the workstations is we do not map network drives ever anymore, but we'll put a shortcut on the desktop that will open up the NAS files that they have access to. How would we do that with Gatekeeper? And like I say, we could have them hit the web interface, but that's a little bit more clunky than what they would be used to if they were working on the LAN. So how would you go about it?
Are they on the LAN, or are you suggesting they would be external?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm talking about work from home people. So, say they're working from home, we give them, a Gatekeeper access and access to a NAS device. How would that work? Would we have to hit port 80 or 443, or is there another way?
So when you say a shortcut on their desktop, what is that shortcut doing when they double click it?
It goes directly to the NAS, and then we have a username and password just in it, so it's on the LAN. Okay.
And it's going over, like they're looking at the files through Explorer or
yeah, like Explorer, right? Yeah, it would just be like Explorer.
So through RDP, it would work just like normal. They would be able to drag and drop files and copy them from their desktop, their remote desktop onto their local machine. Just like
but I'm saying if we don't give them RDP, say because of this, I mean it looks interesting, but I can probably have it hit the web interface on port 80 or an SSL on port 443, and then they can just get to the NAS on the inside of the LAN. Now, what I'm looking at is not having to open up the web portal for a Synology NAS, and then have them use the two-factor authentication built into Gatekeeper to get to the data on a NAS from the outside.
So that's a great use case. And one I think that it's the type of use case that we would be willing to look at deeply. And Aaron, I don't want to intercept, but my guess is it's definitely a worthwhile use case. We just have to get more details on the actual implementation.
Yeah, because they do use LDAP, and for clients now, and I think the other fellow was saying, a lot of times I'm not putting domain controllers on the networks anymore because a lot of the stuff's going to cloud. And you know, you can just get away with just a workstation. You don't need a full domain controller on a small network of 10 people or 5 people.
Right.
But you can set up LDAP on these Synology units and do the authentication there.
Yeah.
Or, you know, we just have them remote in using Gatekeeper, give them access to the IP address of the NAS, but I'm a little vague as to how they would be able to get to the files in the way that they're used to, instead of having to learn like the web interface or something.
That's a great
Yeah.
question, and we'll follow back up with you. So I'm going to put you on mute, Mike, but so largely that is a determination of, you know, what type of TCP traffic it takes to establish and maintain that access, right? And it sounds like it's potentially HTTPS traffic, which would be potentially eligible for that type of rule. So that's, you know, something we like to move to the front of the queue definitely and look at.
Also, you can do SMB over Gatekeeper. So it's possible that they would be able to just mount it. So that's potentially an option. But let's move on.
So we do have a couple of polls that I would like to try to ask. The one is about marketing, trying to understand in terms of what help you might need to understand, recommend, sell, use, you know, Gatekeeper. It is available on your solution. If you have 5.0 and you have an NFR unit, you have the ability to activate the premium plan at no charge for your NFR. You could create, you know, RDP rules, SSH rules. Those are already enabled. And so we would encourage you to try that and use that. And but then we also want to understand what could be the most helpful, because, and I think this is a pick any, but this is somewhat of a new concept. It's not, you know, it's thinking about zero trust network access in the context of small business. It's not a VPN. It brings a number of things together. And so we need to help understand what of these would be the most helpful. So again, it looks like most all of it would be, which is great. And so we'll go ahead and close that out, and that'll give some of our marketing folks some guidance on where to invest their time and effort. I've got another one from our sales team, and we don't want this to be salesy, but we are interested in getting some guidance, because, you know, part of what we have to do is manage resources, people, time, and effort. And so we're interested in whether or not you think that your current customers can use Gatekeeper in both its RDP SSH form as well as the HTTPS and other rule form in its current, you know, where we are with it. So let us know. No harm, no foul here. If we don't understand, then it's hard for us to focus our efforts to serve you. So the more that you can share with us here, there's no commitment, but it helps us with planning and resources and the like. So go ahead and close that out. You had a great participation. Thank you very much. And then in addition to existing customers, one of the things our marketing team is interested in doing is helping you guys acquire new customers. And so does Gatekeeper offer the opportunity to help you acquire new customers? Yes, no, maybe, a lot, a little, you know, and then our guys can help take this insight, and we can, you know, again, take that limited bit of resources we have and think about ways that we can help raise the tide, lift all boats, and grow together. So again, we need to know what tools you need, if it's educating current customers or new prospects, or you need more information. And frankly, it looks like that's kind of maybe we need a lot more information, and that's fair. And so I think Some of that information, honestly, is use cases and firsthand experience. Unfortunately, a lot of you guys have had to implement VPNs over the last 2 years. So getting you to go away from that is hard, but maybe the next time you have to install a VPN client, you might ask yourself, maybe I could use Gatekeeper here. Might be easier to maintain, easier for the customer. I find it that way, to be personally honest. So think about that, and we'll kind of. And then one last question, and this one's, as I mentioned at the outset, we do need our partners' help, and we don't want to pester you if you don't want to help. If you don't know how to help, that's okay too. If you're willing to help with use cases or referrals or whatever it might be, we'd like to know that. And any answer here is totally okay. So we appreciate just your honest candor on this one. But again, if you're willing to help us, whether or not that's a referral, a like, a review, a beta, let us know. If you'd like to trial some local marketing, Google Ads, we got a marketing team we're building that is eager to get Gatekeeper into your community. So, we need guinea pigs. Those come in all shapes and sizes. So thank you for your interest here. So let's see. I think that's all my questions. Yep. So one last way to give us feedback is in the survey question at the end. And so you can answer that open, but protocols, enhancements, integrations, convenience, problems. Ted put out a wide open problem is how does he manage that? And that's a big problem, Ted. That's a fair reality. So how do we play? Can we help you? I think we can, but we have to get into details. So we have a lot of swag. We'd like to get it into your hands. Help us promote. We'll be distributing it. We got hats, we got t-shirts, we got shirts, we got more stuff coming. So like us, follow us. One thing, if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel, we'd love that. Then you get notified of new technical stuff. We're trying to use that as a way to get content out there. And if you want to try and do a video of Gatekeeper, we'd love for you to do that. A use case where we can help you market that. Give us a copy of the recording and tell us the device you're trying to get to, like the NAS. It might break, but maybe we don't make that public, but we're like, hey, I tried it this way and it didn't work. And that's one way to get our developers that are on the West Coast working with our partners on the East Coast is to share that type of information. Lawrence really encouraged me to ask folks to give us reviews. We have a phenomenal support team. Many of you guys share emails and telephone conversations with me about how much you appreciate that. Those reviews are a great way to let others know, and we do appreciate that very much. We know it takes time, and so we appreciate your effort there.